You know, we can all readily list some of the challenges that act against development in small island systems like the Virgin Islands. Some of them would be limited natural resources, or a narrow economic base, emigration of young professionals out of our workforce as they seek to find better economic opportunities elsewhere, or heavy reliance on outside entities for our goods and services, and being held ransom essentially to national and global trends. We often say, well, we can't do anything about these things, so our best option is to just do the best we can and call it a day. I venture to say that given the changes that we're seeing around us, happening so rapidly and unprecedented, chances are we are going to be facing even more challenges in the not too distant future unless we take some decisive action to help to move us to a more positive state of affairs. But I'm not here today as a prophet of doom and gloom. In fact, I want to share with you some thoughts about an approach that we might consider adopting that will help us to move in the direction that I think we all would like to move in. We need to be able to ride the wave of change into the future. We will do this, we could do this through creative thinking and creative problem solving. But what is this creativity thing that we're talking about? Is it creative writing and creative dancing and creative art? Well, to some extent, but so much more than that. It's more than the everyday creativity that we use in all of our lives. You know, how do we juggle those 14 things that we have to accomplish by the end of the day? Or how do we figure out how we're going to use that last $100 bill to take care of $150 worth of expenses? The creativity that I'm talking about is creativity that can be learned and harnessed, and when used in the right way, can produce amazing ideas, solutions, innovations, and outcomes that could potentially transform the Virgin Islands from that of a passive follower to an active leader. That's the US Virgin Islands that I would love to see and to be a part of. Let me illustrate. 3 years ago, Buffalo State's creativity director, Dr. Gerard Puccio, conducted a study in Buffalo. Essentially, he asked 4 groups of individuals to tackle a challenge. The basic challenge was, how can we increase public usage of the bus system in downtown Buffalo? The 4 groups represented groups of individuals who had varying levels of training in creative thinking. And the basic outcome was those that had more training in creative thinking and creative problem solving produced a greater number of ideas and a greater number of original ideas. And the bottom line is simply this: creative thinking can be taught, and when individuals are taught how to think creatively, they produce amazing results, amazing ideas when it comes to challenges. But what does this all have to do with the Virgin Islands? How can we take this fact and apply it in a way that helps us to move forward? Well, the first step would be to unleash the gatekeepers of our own creative potential. And that essentially is the buts, those negative thoughts that kill our ideas before they even have an opportunity to see the light of day. We may, for example, say, I had a great idea of a way that we could overcome traffic congestion in Charlotte, Amalia in the morning, but. Or we might say, I really wanted to be a marine biologist, but. Or perhaps you might say, you know, I had a really great idea for an innovative business, but. It is those buts that can be idea killers. And we need to be consciously aware of those buts. And by the way, that same process that we do to ourselves, we also do to others. Sometimes we have, it's a natural tendency when someone comes to us with an idea to say, you know what, that sounds like a really great idea, but. And we need to be able to be conscious of those buts, work actively against them, and give our ideas an opportunity to be examined and to be assessed and to be developed for their potential. We need to learn to kick our butts. And that's the difference between a trained individual in creative thinking and an untrained individual. A trained individual will look at a waffle on his breakfast table and see the potential for an improved track sole and develop it into a multi-million-dollar industry. True story. But what I think is even more interesting is how can we use this in the Virgin Islands to change our direction, to have us be able to deal with the incoming or oncoming wave of change? Can creativity be used to develop a Virgin Islands that is known on the world stage for our ability to create, incubate, and develop innovative ideas? There are studies out there that support the power of creative thinking on communities. In 2012, a European Union assessment of the impacts of creativity on communities across Europe revealed that the changes have resulted in improvements in innovation, productivity, education, lifelong learning, and environmental sustainability. In Canada, there is a major push for a policy that mandates creative thinking in all schools as part of the core curriculum. I'm talking English, math, and creative thinking. Or as one writer puts it, a move from the 3 R's of reading, writing, and arithmetic to the 4 C's of curiosity, creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking. Now, if these large countries are seeing the benefits and the potential of integrating creativity into their communities, I think we should also be examining the potential for the integration of creative thinking into our community. We are much smaller than them, and this means that we could probably implement it a lot more easily, and certainly the impacts would be seen much more readily in a smaller community like the Virgin Islands. Here's another interesting thing about creative thinking. The research is showing that diverse groups are much more creative than groups that are made up of individuals of all of a similar background. And by background, I mean both professional and sociocultural. Something happens at the cognitive level when we permit ourselves to see through the eyes of others. It creates a whole new realm of options and allows us to extrapolate and build on those ideas. The US Virgin Islands has an amazing diversity of culturally, ethnically, and I'm not just talking about blacks, whites, Hispanics. I'm talking about diversity both from a historical perspective and a geographical perspective. St. Croix alone has had 7 sovereign leaders historically, ranging from Dutch, British, Danish, French, the Knights of Malta, and of course the United States of America. In addition to, we have the indigenous peoples and their cultures. We have that heritage. We have the heritage of blacks, Africans who were imported to the Virgin Islands. And even today, geographically, just think about the Caribbean islands. Each of those islands brings a new cultural dimension to the Virgin Islands. I'm from Barbados, by the way. We quickly say that the US Virgin Islands has limited resources. I submit to you that we have a collective resource of cultural, ethnic diversity that is to this point untapped. And if we could just harness it, combine it with learned creative problem solving, we could be starting something truly revolutionary in the Virgin Islands, and that excites me. But I know some of you might be saying, well, Nick, that sounds like a really great idea, but you don't understand some of the barriers that exist in the Virgin Islands. I think I do. And I think the first and perhaps the largest barrier, again, is the barrier in our minds. We need to learn to kick our butts. My vision for the Virgin Islands is a Virgin Islands of people who are willing to think outside the box, who are willing to take risks beyond the norm, who are willing to fail, but who are known for their ability to be creative, to start a dynamo of potential change that will lead us from the present into a future of awesome productivity in the Virgin Islands. Thank you.